Deputy Gilmore. Deputy Gilmore, interruption. Deputy Gilmore.
The Tanaiste describes today's CSO figures, which show that jobs are disappearing and that emigration has started again. She describes it as a challenge. The people who are challenged, Tanaiste, are the people who've lost their job, and the challenge for them is how they're going to pay their bills. And the people who are challenged are the people whose businesses are in trouble, and the challenge for them is how they're going to get credit to keep going and to stay in business. And the people who are challenged are those who are still at work and who are worried now about how much more bad news you and your government have for them in terms of increased taxation or even pay cuts. And at the heart of the challenge, and the cause of it, was what happened in the banking system, and in particular what happened in Anglo-Irish Bank. That was the rotten bank at the heart of the whole toxic problem that has caused the collapse in our economy. And I want to ask you one or two questions about Anglo-Irish Bank. Last December, 10 months ago, we first heard of the practices and the scandalous goings-on in that bank. Directors paying themselves huge bonuses, organising back-to-back loans, shifting money from one institution to another. Around the same time, Bernie Madoff was arrested in New York. Since then, Bernie Madoff has been tried, convicted, and jailed for a total of 150 years. Since then, unfortunately, we've heard very little of anybody being called to book in relation to what happened in Anglo. The only thing we've heard was that there was a high-profile Garda raid last February. We've heard nothing about it since. And yesterday, we're told, report, 8 directors who have 22 million in loans between them. We've also heard over the weekend figures being speculated that additional money is going to be put directly into, and I'm not talking about NAM, I'm talking about recapitalisation money being put into Anglo-Irish Bank. This bank has now been in the state's ownership since January. So I want to know two things, Tanaiste. Firstly, when are we going to see somebody brought to book here for what happened in Anglo? What is happening to the investigations that we were told were going on? When the Labour Party proposed that an inspector should be appointed to examine what went on in Anglo, the government rejected it and said that it would be investigated by Director of Corporate Enforcement and by the Gardaí. What's happened? Where is it? And secondly, how much more money is the government going to put into Anglo-Irish? There was a figure mentioned over the weekend, I think it was in the Sunday Business Post, of the 3.8 billion that's already been put in being increased to something like 10 billion. Can you tell the House how much more of the taxpayers' money that's needed for our schools and hospitals and the services that the public consume, how much more of that money is going to be put into Anglo-Irish Bank? Corla, the Tanaiste is right in one thing she said. Our system of justice here, certainly as it pertains to corporate crime, is not the same as it is in the United States. In the United States, they treat corporate wrongdoing somewhat more seriously than apparently we do here. The public is not reassured, Tanaiste, that the investigation is ongoing. That's what worries the public. It's going on and on forever. And we haven't seen any results from it yet. And you haven't been able to tell the House or give any indication as to when it is going to be brought to conclusion and when we're going to see some accountability for it. And I say that particularly because this is an investigation into matters which took place in what is now, wasn't then, but what is now a state-owned bank. And meanwhile, all we're getting is the law of Armagh from the banks, and in particularly from Anglo-Irish Bank in this particular case. You say, Tanaiste, that the government will consider whatever capital is necessary for Anglo-Irish Bank. I think that people who make up the statistics in the CSO report today, people who've lost their jobs, people whose businesses are in trouble, people who are facing possible pay cuts and tax increases, all of which was caused mainly by the carry-on of Anglo-Irish Bank in particular. It wasn't the only one, but it was the worst offender by a mile, and that was reflected in the Minister for Finance's figures last week when 28,000 million of the bad loans, bad toxic property-related assets are associated with that bank. That's what has to be forked up for. And on top of that, they're now looking for more money to recapitalise. Can you say, is the figure that Anglo-Irish Bank will require, is it as high as the 10,000 million that was reported in one of the newspapers last Sunday? Speculated about the amount of money. I mean, you're talking about, the government will consider whatever capital is necessary. We don't get the same approach from government at all. We're not telling the hospitals that they're going to get whatever money is necessary. We're not telling the schools that they're going to get whatever money is necessary. We're not telling any area of public life in this country that they're going to get whatever money is necessary. You're not telling people who need to get back into employment that the government is going to provide whatever money is necessary in order to get them back. But you're saying that the government will provide whatever capital is necessary to keep Anglo-Irish Bank alive. So how much is it? They've got 3,800 million of our money already. How much more are they going to get?